So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the benchmark of your digital enterprise workshop. This workshop is brought to you by L&T Technology Services. My name is Sameer Bagga. I am the Chief Marketing Officer. While I've designed over 150 products, but today my role over here is being the voice of the customer and the conscience of the customer. Uh, last couple of years, there's a huge acceleration with digital technologies coming into place. Huge impact being made in various parts of the organization, the enterprise, the manufacturing place. We heard that in keynotes. We also heard a startling stat which said only 11% of the places where there is successful, or so there's work in progress kind of things. So we're going to be doing an interactive workshop. This is the third year we are hosting this. It is a benchmark. Each of you should have an audience polling remote in front of you. If you don't, please raise your hand and one of my colleagues will help you out over there. And so to interpret the data, and we will be comparing data from last 2 years, what we had collected in a similar session over here. I have an esteemed panel members over here who will help us give their perspectives and color to the discussion as well as the polling data. To my left is Brad. He's the Vice President of Operations and Fire and Security Products at UTC, Carrier brand. He basically is responsible for operation activities, including manufacturing. I call him, he's the guru in Industry 4.0. Next to him is Dion from Halliburton. He's focused on Halliburton's digital transformation efforts. As a product champion of Halliburton's Voice of Oil Field Digital Technologies, he integrates cutting-edge technologies, real-time data, and advanced analytics with the reservoir models and the digital twin, the popular word. Greg needs no introduction. Greg is the lead analyst at ARC Research, who is responsible for digital technologies for various industries. He has a session right in this room at 2 o'clock, so he will be pretty much flagging me to close the session much ahead of time. So don't be alarmed if we start screaming in the end. We have Jan with us. She is the Director of Worldwide Engineering and Construction Services and Solution at Eastman Chemical. Jan has a strategic oversight of innovative engineering enabling technology teams. And finally, at the end, we have NR. He is the Chief Digital Officer at L&T Technology Services. He basically consults R&D houses, both on strategy operations, I would say from the boardrooms to the shop floor portions of it. So with that, if you can move on to the first slide over there. 30-second plug into my company, and I will not be doing service about it. We are an engineering services company. A lot of companies are saying that, talking about digital transformation. The difference is they come from the IT side, we come from the engineering side from a digital transformation perspective. We help customers, so you see a lot of product companies trying at the shop floor. So we help some of these customers in terms of product design, development, testing, certification. As far as the manufacturing operation goes, apart from optimization, efficiencies, new way models, we act as a system integrator. We work across 5 verticals. Apart from them, I think one key thing which you need to know is that of the top 100 R&D houses, 51 of them are our partners, and we work very closely with them. Over 360 plus patents our engineers have created for our customers. So that's about L&T Technology Services, and we will now get into the polling question. So if you can move on to the first polling question, if you can all pick your remote. We're just trying to find out who is in the audience. Are you an end user or a manufacturer? Are you an OEM that sells plant equipment or a manufacturer? Are you a service provider or contract manufacturer, technology or a digital partner, or others? Click on any one of them, A, B, C, D, E, and we will see the polling come up. Khalid, do we have a timer or? Okay. Okay. We just wait for some of the other colleagues to come in and settle in. And so Khalil, why don't we populate it up? All right. So it looks like predominantly end users, very few people, end user manufacturers, and technology partners in the room, and others. I am assuming, I hope there are lots of analysts in there, in others over here. So Greg, you got your job cut out over there. Let's move on to the next polling, please. Size of your organization. So last calendar year, last fiscal year, are you 10 million and above, between 5 and 10, 3 and 5, 1 and 3, less than $1 billion in revenues? Analyze or calendar, whatever you know the best portions of it. It just gives us a scale of it. Can we have that up? So we have 28 of them in large corporations and then less of them. So last time when we did this statistics, it was pretty much around the same. We had close to about 55%, 10 billion and above companies in there, and about 20% in the $1 billion. So the room stats are pretty much similar. Can we move on to the next one, please? So all the people who are coming into the room late, if you don't have a remote in front of you, please ask for one, raise your hand. We are doing audit. So this is the first real question. Who in your organization drives digital investments? Is it design and R&D, manufacturing, operations, service support, sales and marketing, supply chain, corporate or corporate IT? I know you can say multiple, but there's only one answer we're looking for. Let's go and build that up. Nice. So I'm not saying that's a percentage because I don't have a total count over here, but predominantly what you're saying is it's a corporate initiative or it is driven by corporate IT. Otherwise, I think so from a manufacturing point, you are taking the lead portions of it. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Now, this is a question which we asked last year. So what level of adoption and digital connected technology in your manufacturing process? This is not in your enterprise. This is on your shop floor managing process. Are you at a discussion strategy stage? Are you at a pilot or a POC stage? Have you implemented? That means you have not scaled it out. You have it, you have implemented it, but yet to see results, you're just doing trial and errors and project. Or you have seen large scale implementation and seeing clear impact and ROI. A, B, C, D. You can pick one of those. Can we start? Can we put it up? So majority is in pilot stage, is there. Otherwise, evenly distributed, if I may say. I think they're evenly distributed across. If you move to the next slide, and which will give you a reference of last year, last 2 years, if you look at, last 2 years when we looked at it, close to 70% of you were either in discussion or strategy stage or in pilot implementation stage. It doesn't look like that has changed. We had seen on 2017 to 18, there was a 10% jump in terms of seeing ROI, which is actually not reflective in what we have in the audience over here. So let me turn over to Greg and get his expert opinion over here. Greg, you have been interacting with a lot of corporations as part of your research, as part of the calls you take. Who in the organization is actually in the driving seat? Is there a department which has a clear vision, which has the money, and which has the will to execute a large transformational program? Can you share your perspective?
Okay, thanks, Samir. I really wish there was a one silver bullet answer to this question, but I don't think it's so easy. The good news is it's a journey that so many companies are on now. So we're a couple of years back. Part of the answer would have to be that you have to find the right person in the right company. But today the answer is a little more varied because there are a lot of people, and most companies are in some form or other on this journey. So it's no longer the needle in a haystack problem. We are seeing many companies naming a chief digital officer, who takes responsibility and drives some of these things. So that's certainly a point of leverage, something to look for in these things. I noticed in one of the earlier charts, there were sort of the corporate IT drivers and the manufacturing drivers, and that squares with what we see pretty much. Although a lot of times some of the early budget comes out of the corporate IT budget, but the work seems to be done by the manufacturing operations folks. So that tells me that's where some of the early payoff is. And if you think about it in operations and optimizing your operations and with IoT and machine learning and things like that, driving smart factories and driving the assets to be running at a higher uptime, that kind of thing. So we're seeing a lot of interest there. So it starts there. But a lot of those companies that have a manufacturing operation, many of them are delivering products, and today they're delivering smart products. So that's another area to think about. Another, if you have smart products, they've got to be designed with the new connected technology involved in it, and not only the technology to connect them, but you got to think about who's the audience for these things, what's the ecosystem like, who's going to maintain it, and who's going to have access to this data. So there's the engineering component, which is very important. There's a services component to think about. There's a supply chain component, and then there's an overall business systems component. And each one of these areas is getting smarter or evolving in some way, and they all have their own champions within the company. So there sometimes can be a bit of an internal tussle between which of these is going to take priority. But there's money to be had because we're seeing that in a lot of companies, and based on just the user's input that we get, it's not really a question of when, it's how I want to start today. So.
Thanks, Greg. Anar, let me ask you, you travel the globe and you talk to various industries and different people from different types of organization for you. Are there industries which have taken digital transformation, are leading ahead of the others? And why is it so? Is it because they've got bigger pockets? Is there got bigger customer base? Or is it a regional flavor? Or it's a cultural thing?
Yeah. Thanks, Samir. I would like to see that statistics very interesting. Now this year, a lot of people have voted that they are seeing results out of their digital transformation, because a couple of years ago, that last option is always used to be blank. So good thing is digital is showing some results. But to answer your question, 3 industries are leading the race today. There is no defined metrics. One, the companies which are in the services industry, they adopt digital much faster. It is not for something, for their own survival and growth. So that is one. The second thing we are seeing the quicker and larger scale adoption happening in the financial sector. So being it banking, insurance. So they are picking up on the next slot. The third one is on the healthcare. Because that is where they're getting the volume of their digital business. So if you want to keep competitive and keep hitting the market, you need some scale. So that volume is coming from financial services and healthcare. So these 3 industries are in a way is leading the race. But having said that, the quick adoption on the manufacturing that is coming, significantly on the discrete manufacturing, we have seen companies in auto and others are seeing a lot of thing. But that has got a dovetail answer to your third question. Why do they do it? if we see on the manufacturing, which is quickly catching up, being it aero, auto, whatever process, and so on, either they want to make money, so that means they're looking for new avenues for their revenue to increase their top up their top line, being it entrant into the new geography, new offering, that is one. Or they're trying to save money. So that means if I'm going to a shop floor or within a plant, they're trying to take three metrics. For example, how can I improve my productivity? While I increase my productivity, can I optimize my cost that is involved to produce that product? Can I keep it up minimal? Third, they're also trying to connect that IT/OT to get a backward traceability, so that in terms of quality rejection, in terms of their inventory stock, their hard-earned cash flow is getting stocked up into that. Can I release a percentage of my cash flow which has been stocked up into my inventory, which I can pump in back into my operations floor so that I can able to meet it? So these are the three drivers in which people are driving at manufacturing. Probably the next year, by the time we come in, I think we would have the third bar raised up more in manufacturing per se, I believe.
So is there a difference between enterprise, which is a B2B or a B2C kind of thing, where you see adoption much more or less?
To be honest,
Both from a manufacturing and enterprise side?
yes, I mean, that was a case a couple of years ago. But if you really ask me, I would put in a very lighter note. There is no walls in between them. So and there is no debate on the walls anymore. So the digital has dissolved the boundaries. So there is nothing called enterprise. There is nothing called IT kind of thing. So I would say that it has become more of a ingredient, and the boundaries have been dissolved. So the driving factor on few countries, as you said, on the manufacturing is coming through the government policies as well. So your environmental, concerns, your sustainability factor, and the people getting more aware of their, the planet and the social goodwill. So those are the drivers are pushing few companies to adopt digital to show and commit to the community back that they are taking the earnest efforts on digital.
Cool. Thanks, Anar. We'll go for the next set of few polling questions. So, top three factors that influence digital buying in your action. So there are three factors, so you can poll 3 times. Don't put the same button thrice. So A is management push, B is competition, C is customer demand, or revenue stream if you want to call that. D is innovation, E is bottom line pressure, F is for accurate forecasting, and G is transparency. So you have 3 votes. You can, on your polling machine, press 3 times. You can't reverse it. You only get once. We'll wait for a few seconds more. They're still coming in. So why don't we populate it? Yep. There's one person who's still waiting, holding on to poll. Yeah, close it. Okay. I would say customer demands, so I'll take that as revenue. Management, so top management, I guess they factor out of other things, followed by innovation and bottom line pressure. Very less on accurate forecasting, transparency to do with digitalization. So that's interesting. Okay. Let's go to the next polling question, please. So what is the #1 challenge in your manufacturing process towards digital adoption? Is it organization culture, talent, high initial capex investment, identification of right problem that can be solved using digitization, lack of standards, data security, and privacy? A to F, please poll. 1 challenge, so it's 1 poll. Close it. So organization culture and identification of the right problem statements are the 2 biggest hurdles, followed by capex. So I would say 50% of it, majority of it is on identification and organization culture, and lack of standards in private security are equally biased portion of it. Can we go to the next slide and see what it came as last year? So if you look at last year, or the last 2 years, if you look at number one was organization culture, and after that was CapEx, and after that was basically talent portions of it, and we saw a lack of standard jump in year on year. We did not have the use case or the business case as a answer last time, and we thought we'll modify it this way. So that was a good comparison, what's shifting from last year to this year portion. Can we go to the next slide, please? So my organization has started seeing impact of smart technologies in the following area: on the consumer side, in the enterprise, on the shop floor, production and manufacturing, in the design and engineering, in the supply chain, or the services side, field services. And you need to poll top three. Can we close it? A few of you still need to vote. Close it. So most of you feel that biggest impact is in manufacturing and production. Not surprised, because most of you are from there, so it's got some amount of bias over there. And then at an enterprise level. What surprises me is the consumer part is evenly poised with all other design, engineering, supply chain. Let's look at the comparison of the previous 2 years. We have to go to the next slide. And look at how it was. When we started in 2016, biggest impact was consumer side, which it was on the buyer area, portions of it. And we saw a steady improvement last year. It's saying that, the biggest bang for your money in terms of investment was in manufacturing. You have switched from consumer to enterprise and production areas portion of it. So we'll go to the next slide, and I will ask my question to Dion. Dion, you're from, oil and gas, companies are big, complex, highly intensive in terms of CapEx, trillions of data floating around in all types of shapes of it. What is one of the biggest challenge for transforming traditional oil and gas companies such as Halliburton to get into the digital play?
Well, thank you, Samir. So you think about oil and gas industry. It's a very large industry. Has a lot of the upstream, midstream, and downstream. If we kind of look at the upstream industry as a whole, I think the main challenge is around the digital readiness of that industry itself. So I think there's not a clear path to exactly what is the advantages of going digital. If we look at many operators today that I've spoken to, one of the common things we hear is where do we actually start? You're right, we do have gigabytes and petabytes of data. There's so much data out there, and it's scattered all over the organization. It's where do we actually start if we want to go down this path? It's such a big, complex machine, whether it's drilling focused or production focused or whatnot. And if we look at the oil field services industry where I sit myself, it's largely a task and job, more or less a commodities market. If we take digital and we try and implement that into some traditional legacy workflows, it becomes very tough to do. So we have to actually change the culture of our organization to think beyond kind of this 3-month period where being a public company, so we can actually look at value. How do we do long-term value and implement a digital strategy? It was the first time actually this year that our corporate executive committee has required all of our product service lines to actually have a digital swim lane in any of their planning. So we're now getting that into our culture to get those business leaders to actually think in forms of digital. How can they use digital to actually help their business get to their end goals? we are very much a commodity business, and there are a lot of operators out there, they will actually purchase based on pricing. There are some operators that will price on or actually choose a service provider based on value. Those value ones are the ones we try to actually get into with some kind of digital solution. So I'm in the voice of the oil field. It's one of my products that I work on today. And it's kind of looking at the bigger picture, not just a commodity, not just one thing, not just one service, but how you can integrate those together, how you can collaborate between the service company and the operator. How do you have platforms in place to allow a seamless collaboration between multiple companies? And that's where we're really focused on today, is kind of having this open architecture and I guess, platform that would allow us to share things digitally. Investment right now in the oil field services industry is really driven by demand. And demand is created by the customer. And really, the operators themselves, they don't have a clear path to a clear understanding of what digital is and what that value is. They know they have to move that direction. They know they have lots of data to support it. They just don't know where to start. That's kind of...
That's interesting. So, Brad, let me come to you. You have been champion of a lot of transformational initiatives at UTC. Talk to us about the factor that puts your team into high gear into digital initiatives. If there are incidents or sharing some things you can share about, where you had to solve it now and here, and you had new technologies. If you could share some of those perspectives,
sure,
that'd be great.
I think it really comes back to customer support. If we don't treat our customers with the utmost respect and care, somebody else will. So in a few instances that came to mind is we had a customer call and say, where's our unit, where's our delivery? And then, I'd go over and ask the scheduling, the customer service guy, and he'd pull a report, and then he'd go to the assembly line, then he'd go to the shipping area to see where it was at. By the time all this happened, 8 hours had passed. And, I talked to him, he says, oh, well, my group spends 50% of their day tracking the orders. And I said, okay, that's insane. We have a lot of data. So let's get together, build the tools, schedule. And really, it's all about visibility. I mean, we have a lot of interns come in the building, and I have a 7-year-old daughter, that she'll get on the app and order a Domino's pizza from the car. And she says, oh, they know where the car's at. I said, well, just wait till we get home. So you think about that. And in 10 years, 12 years, these are going to be your future interns. So this is what their expectation is. So we had interns coming in that would say, our technology is so far behind, so we have to get caught up in order to get the next level of talent that you want to bring into your organizations. So, and it can't be IT-led programs. That was one of the things we said. They said, well, we need to get with IT. No, this is a business problem. This is an issue that we need to solve. IT may help us lead it, but you own the program. It's not an IT-led project. So I think it's getting the culture and the organization brought on board to a penchant for action, bias for action, I'll say, versus, kind of waiting on someone else to do it. So, and really putting that customer experience front and center. And invisibility inside the shop. It needs to be, half our time was spent a customer calling to see where it's at. They should have visibility every step of the way, from order entry to delivery, whether that's through an app. Visibility, is it in drafting? Is it in contract engineering? Is it in production? Is it in packaging? Is it in shipping? Is it in transit? With shipping numbers. I'm sure many of you in manufacturing, I'm sure you've never had an issue where a customer called and said, where's my tracking number? And how difficult it is to try and find a tracking number. So it takes a few issues like that, and you realize the amount of technology that's out there and that we need to quickly adapt to. So those are some of the things that are really driving the changes. And again, it's a culture change, and finding the right people and the right skill sets in the team to do that. I think it needs to change some of your hiring practices as well. I said, again, it's not an IT problem. It's not an IT program. Every single person in the building needs to be a digital native, and they need to think like an order entry, think like a process, and how is it going to get from one end to the other, from input, from the time it's ordered, what are the steps it goes through, and how can we simplify that for the customer? Because if we don't, somebody else is going to disrupt us.
Thanks, Brad. Jan, let me come to you. And you're heading the engineering services at Eastman globally. What are the top 3 implementation channels while adopting digital technologies on the ground? So we're going right to the ground. And of course, you can add any perspective from a polling point of view.
Thank you, Samir. So I don't like the word challenges. They are challenges, but they're opportunities as well. And you only gave me three, so I'm going to bucket my response, which is
Sure.
broader than that, into three. I think the number one thing is staying true to our vision and our strategy. We have that very well thought out. There's a reason why we do this, and it is cool, but it's a business reason that it does return on that investment. There's all kinds of different rabbit trails we could go down. There's so much emerging technology, and it's very easy to get distracted as you start implementing because the next great thing comes out. So staying focused on what it is that we intended to do, delivering on that, and capturing the value certainly is a challenge that's in front of us as we implement. The other issue around that is also making sure that we do see that value, that we're able to reinvest that, and that our users see that in the end. That builds enthusiasm, that gets them invested, and we're able to broaden the folks who are involved in our digital strategy. The second item that I would focus on is change management, and that covers several different topics. First of all, it has to be managed in a totally different way than most projects are within the corporate structure. For our digitalization strategy, I lead our engineering efforts. We cover from everything from the conceptual design to handoff to operations and maintenance. So it's not just an engineering problem, so we can't just manage it with engineering. Touching the manufacturing space, touching the maintenance space, touching the IT space, bringing all of those leaders together to manage all of those different facets as we implement. That's a challenge. That's not something that we're used to doing on a day-to-day project year over year. So that's certainly a challenge and an opportunity that's exciting and fun when we get it started in the right way. The other thing around change management is we have 50 sites around the world, and we're very focused on innovation. We've got a lot of very talented, very forward-thinking people. So they haven't been sitting at their desk waiting for us to come out with what the digital strategy is going to be. They come to conferences, they see things that are going on, and they start trying things. So as we do roll out that master plan and we start touching all of the different sites and all of the different organizations, we've got to be very strong in our messaging that we're not squelching or we're not dissatisfied with the progress that's been made individually, but that has to become part of the greater effort to have a corporate-wide impact. So it's very important, our messaging, our communications around that, and that everyone understands that all of those small steps are going to help lead to the big step that propels us forward. The final issue in my buckets of three are resources. And I don't mean resources from the standpoint of we can't find people who can do this. Finding resources, I think in the last session somebody spoke it very well. They called them translators. Individuals who understand our business processes very, very well and are able to interface that with the emerging digital technologies and are able to take us to that next level. The worst thing that we can do is electrify our current business processes. Take the tools and just force them to fit what we do today. The best thing that we can do is to look at why we're doing what we're doing, what's important, what's not. Let's lean that process, let's automate where we can. And we've got to have our business experts looking at that to outline that and make sure that we're getting that value, that we're getting that next step. Those people, freeing them up from their day jobs, they are the experts who are doing their day job very well, to make them available to this effort, that is a challenge for them to be able to live in both of those worlds. There is a really unique opportunity that I've seen from that too. If you go to an engineering conference, you hear a lot about the knowledge transfer gap, that we've got this huge generational divide. So one of the most rewarding things that I've seen at our company is that there's some more senior people in our organization that we're able to partner with lesser experienced individuals, and they're able to order the pizza from the car, they're able to tell us how to get onto Snapchat or whatever it is today. They've got the technology down. They've grown up that way. They know how to work that way. They don't always understand why we do things the way we do in the chemical industry, why it's important to safety, why it's important to our customer. Those users that have been with us for a longer time period, they do understand that. Seeing those two groups work together and be able to have that knowledge transfer, be able to lean and optimize together, helps get us to a much better place, and we're able to accomplish that knowledge transfer as well. And to your polling results, I was really, really pleased to see that capital investment was not the high nail. I think that says that all of us are doing the pilots, the proof of concepts, the implementations, that we're seeing the payback. It's not a matter of selling the idea, selling the strategy. We've crossed that hurdle. It's a matter of how do we get it faster, better, and it's how we do business.
All right, so we'll go to the next final set of polling questions, and we'll go one more round of questions, and I'll have some time for you guys. You wanted to add something? Sure.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
thanks.
Greg.
So Jen, I just wanted to follow up with one point that you mentioned there, and which I think is actually a really important point, which is you mentioned something about we don't want to just apply digital technologies to today's processes. We want to optimize these. But that's where you get the big payoff, I think, but it's also where the disruption comes in. So I just wonder, how do you deal with the fact that that's where the change hits the road, you know?
So I'll give you a real-life example. We'll pretend like that the camera's not rolling right now. It is disruptive. It changes people's work process. We are changing how people do work in our company. So we're actually creating digital work packages from the engineering perspective when we are sending that to execution, to the field, instead of waiting to get their sets of drawings, waiting to get their day-to-day instructions. They're getting a package in advance where they've got everything they need. It's all compiled and together. So the disruptive format, when we first started doing this, the work crews were going around that system and they were going back into the engineering organization saying, I've got to have this drawing. I can't find it. Well, you don't need that drawing yet. You're going to get that when it comes out in that package. You have what you need to do your job today. So it is very disruptive, and it is a new way of thinking about doing work, and it's a new way of learning, which goes back to communication, making sure that we're sharing that entire story, that entire life cycle, and that everybody understands that. Because the other thing is, there are some people who are going to have to do a little bit more work up front in order for the whole process to be optimized and to be less work and more value adding, helping them understand why maybe their piece takes a little bit longer, is a little bit more work. That's important as well.
Thanks. So let's go on to the polling. Rank your top 3 desired outcomes from digitalization. Transparency, faster time to market, efficiency, worker or employee safety, customer experience, efficient asset management, new revenue stream, and cost saving. 3 choices, A, B, A to H, and you can poll 3 times. I would request if you can make it quick because I heard the next group clapping, so it adds on to pressure that we are not on time. Do we have it? Efficiency, that's the winner. And the lowest is efficient asset management. So that seems contrary, I guess. So but I guess people have gone into that, so even so. Why don't we move on to the next one? So this basically gives the comparison of last year's thing. So eventually we had these responses for the similar kind of things, but most of you were looking for optimization of manufacturing operations last time. Let's move to the next slide, please. Top areas where you are investing in digital technology. This is the last polling one, which is automation, industrial automation, integrated manufacturing and supply chain, integrated asset management, digital product lifecycle management, engineer analytics, industrial IoT platform, field service mobility. Top areas. Actually, we're doing 3 areas. So you can poll 3 times. So automation is your number 1 choice. 2 times IoT platform development. And I'm surprised product lifecycle, integrated supply chain, that seems to be. Can we look at the next slide and see how does it compare to the previous year? Not surprising, industrial automation was outright winner last time, and followed by IoT platforms and mobility. So similar results from previous years, so the trend seems to be continuing. I think we're done with the polling question. Can you move to the next slide? I just want to make sure that. So, Anna, let me come to you from a portion of it. Are there returns where people are seeing in a big time? Are there any use cases which you can share with the audience? I would like you to keep it brisk because I want to get a couple of questions and open it to audience for some questions.
Sure, Samir. Very simple. Digital cannot be measured in an ROI terms. Okay, that's what we have been learning over our journey. ROI, return on investment, is quite applicable for your IT projects, being a MES rollout, ERP kind of. This is a voice from the customer, CXO and board levels. They say that, can I get a value out of it? So in digital, we started measuring the success in ROV instead of ROI. So we started measuring on return on value rather than return on investment. Okay, so the whole equation of calculating the returns has changed. Second things where customers are finding difficult today and where they need some support or probably some more time to gauge is they're very successful in their pilot implementation. They say going with one machine, connecting with one data, or couple of machines, putting it out, having a very fancy, colorful dashboards and keep their management happy. Yes, I've done digital. Okay, so that's quite easy. Now what happens is that is putting them into a whirlpool spin. Now management comes with more expectations, say that, okay, now having you been done with my 50K, 100K, 1 million, connecting these 10 machines, putting it across, now roll it across my line, roll it across my plant, now take it across my factories. Now that is where they're finding it difficult because it is a different heterogeneous environment, different standards, different processes which has to be done. And they say that how to define that combined measure of success when I do it across my plant. As Greg and Dion was mentioning, it involves right from design, manufacturing, engineering, supply chain management, inventory, last field connectivity, and so on. So the measure of success is not quantified. So it was very dicey. So that is the stage that we are in today.
Brad, at UTC, what are the top outcomes you guys are shooting out for? And anything on poll if you want to add?
Yeah, no, I think it's sorry, yeah.
Thanks.
I'm used to yelling in a factory, so I'm sure you could have heard me about that. So it's being proactive versus reactive. And again, I think I was a little surprised on the polling results. It's efficiency. And I think we're thinking like manufacturers, focus on efficiency and not the customer experience. We have to focus on the customer experience and let that drive us because that's where the true value is at and what the customer is going to see, not so internally focused. So I think that's something we have to be very careful of in creating that visibility through the site. And then really product lifecycle management, engineering bill of material or EBOM to manufacturing bill of material to service bill of material. And how do you pass that data from a 3D model all the way to a unit? How do you take that unit then with a Q code or a 3D code that you hit that gives you your bill of material? So if a service technician is in the field, they have access to that. So it's trying to drive that end-to-end visibility. And again, being your customer's first choice. And I think our CEO, Greg Hayes, said it best when he said, disrupt yourself before someone else does. So we need to be out there because if we don't treat our customers right, there's somebody else that's waiting to do that. And the companies that are there today may not be your competitors in 24 months from now. So I think it's, we have to pick up the pace and we can't just be the legacy mechanical design manufacturers that most manufacturing companies are.
Thanks. Dion, to you, where is Halliburton investing in? And once you're investing, you've got multiple business lines. How do you roll that out? Is there a method to that madness or in a programmatic way? If you can share some
There is, so right now Halliburton is investing heavily in kind of a platform for our company. Halliburton does have 14 different product business lines, I guess, and they act like 14 different businesses. There's very little collaboration amongst them because they are so focused on their own service, their own product. And we don't have a really good way to actually collaborate even as a company. So we're putting a lot of effort and a lot of focus and a lot of capital investment into developing an infrastructure that would promote collaboration and look at things differently and have access to data, whoever needs data. Right now we have data scattered everywhere, from sitting on somebody's laptop to sitting on a server somewhere. So we really need to have that infrastructure in place so we can use it across our organization. And then we can turn around then and introduce it to operators as well to again kind of promote that collaboration, data sharing, efficiencies that you can get from that. So that's kind of where our primary focus is today, how we move data. So real-time systems, how do we transfer data around, security. So it's more or less the platform that's going to allow us to actually see the value from digital.
That's it. So I'll come to our last question, then we'll open it up for the audience to ask you. Jan, so this is future gazing. 5 years from now, how will Eastman look like? From a manufacturing point of view, we are all talking about factories of the future, where do you feel there'll be huge worker reductions over the period of time? Will be totally automated. We will be dwelling with no downtime, no wastages, no inefficiencies. Or what would be the metrics 5 years from now in ARC, which we'll be talking about what we are planning to do or what we have delivered? A big loaded question, but I think that's a good way to open it to the audience.
Well, I'd like to echo Brad's comments, and I guess internally we call that data for life, making sure that we've got a data-centric environment with transparency of that data from the conceptual phase to the engineering phase, efficient handoff to manufacturing and operations, and on to the next generation of that product line. So I'd like to see that in place. For our company, capital projects take a long time to implement. The products that we make, that we serve end consumers with, those are valuable products. The faster we can get those in consumers' hands, that helps society and that helps our business case too. We want to be innovative in that. We want to take cycle time out of that. So if we can get our digitalization streamlined through the whole entire design process, we can take the inefficiencies out. We want to go from that concept of a molecule to the marketplace faster. The transparency of data that actually makes us more efficient, it also gives everybody in the life cycle that data. I want to see workers out in the plant with their mobile tablet where they've got everything they need. They're able to scan that valve, that instrument. They know why it was put there, all the details that go with it. That also makes for a safer workforce, so that's one of the outcomes that I want to see, a safer workplace. We're eliminating errors. You mentioned eliminating workforce. I don't see eliminating workforce. I see eliminating errors, better quality, which leads to a better business environment and smarter jobs. I think the part of the work that we're taking out, I don't think anybody really gets excited about going to work and doing that every day. I think most people would be ecstatic to get rid of that part of their job and be able to operate on a higher level. So that would be my vision for the outcome of our digitalization efforts.
Very nicely said, Jan. So we'll open up. We have a very limited time, so if you have questions, can we have a mic right over there? I think we can take one more after that, and we'll have to wrap it up.
Okay, Mike Dedzik, ArcelorMittal Dofasco. The topic was Digital Maturity Index. Has anyone on the panel used any specific tools? I know there's some out there. I know ARC is talking about one this conference there. And if you have, has it been useful?
Yes, we do have, but one size doesn't fit all. So to be honest with you, so we have a bunch of parameters across different subsystems and processes and for different verticals. When I say verticals, being at aero, health, telecom, discrete, and so on. Yes, we do have two levels of assessment. One, when we go to the customer, if assume I'm a doctor and somebody comes and have a health checkup, first I would like to know what is their health index today, right? So we call something like digital maturity index to understand in a scale of 5 or 10, where do they stand today, right? And digital is not about dumping some tons of technology into a factory or a business. That is not the intention. So what we try to do is, where is the digital quotient lies today? That is by shortlisting some validated use cases which can either directly improve their top line or bottom line. With the consultants, with the CXO, we get a sign off, and a clear definition roadmap is put up to the team, and then a journey starts which has got a very quantifiable measurements. It's not like that implementing a fancy dashboard or so on, right? So to answer your question, yes, we do have one quick assessment which we open up to our customers to gauge themselves to the self-test. Then we come with an experts, which we call as a two-in-one box. One is a domain expert who knows that industry, been there and done that, and the technology evangelist who can able to translate that business problems into a measurable, doable technological front. Yes, we do have. And many of our Fortune, I would say 100 customers in 3 or 4 verticals have benefited out of that.
Anybody else want to add, or we can take one last final question and we'll wrap it up? It doesn't look like, so let's give a great round of applause to the panel member for a wonderful session. Can we move to one final last slide? If you can spare 60 seconds of your time, just drop them at booth. This is a cancer awareness week on Monday we had, so we just need a soundbite from you, and if you can drop down, we will donate on your behalf to American Cancer Society. We are trying to raise about $3,000 at this event, so help us do that. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.